Colonel Robert Alexander McDade was a United States Army officer. He is best known as the lieutenant colonel in command of the 2nd Battalion, 7th Cavalry Regiment, at the march to LZ-Albany in 1965 during the Vietnam War. Military career. McDade was one of relatively few officers to be in the infantry for 3 wars: the South Pacific in World War II, where he commanded a rifle platoon, the Korean War, where he commanded a rifle company, and the Vietnam War. He was wounded many times. Besides his combat assignments, he held military posts in Washington, D.C., New York City, Germany and Panama. Battle of Iowa Drang. The Battle of Iowa Drang was the first major battle between the United States Army and the People's Army of Vietnam during the Vietnam War. The two-part battle began on November 14, 1965 and was focused on landing zone X-ray. This part of the battle was fought primarily by the 1st Battalion, 7th Cavalry Regiment, led by Lt. Colonel Hal Moore, although elements of Alpha and Bravo companies of the 2nd, 7th participated. The rest of the 2nd, 7th arrived by the morning of November 16. Only 3 weeks before the battle, McDade had been the division's personnel officer, and had not commanded troops in 10 years. His orders were to march the 2nd, 7th to another landing zone, LZ-Albany, 4 kilometers to the north-northeast. On the march, through high grass and thick vegetation, McDade declined an offer of artillery assistance from the 2nd Battalion, 5th Cavalry Regiment, and allowed the middle ranks of soldiers to march single file with little regard for security. On breaks, exhausted soldiers sprawled on the grass at midday. 2 North Vietnamese soldiers were captured. McDade moved forward to interrogate the prisoners himself and called his company commanders forward for a conference. Most were accompanied by the radio operators. The American column was halted in unprepared open terrain, and strung out in 550-yard line of march. Meanwhile, the North Vietnamese were organizing an assault. The North Vietnamese opened fire, and Charlie Company took the worst of it, losing 20 killed and many more wounded in the first minute. The lead unit, Alpha Company, lost 2 platoons, 50 men, in the first minutes. The North Vietnamese were in among the Americans and up in the trees, so American artillery fire killed men from both sides. General Harry W. O. Kinnard and his second-in-command, Brig. Gen. Richard Knowles, later said the brigade commander, Colonel Brown, had not alerted them. Brown said he could get no coherent report from McDade. "We had ample resources at hand to reinforce Albany. Hal Moore's men would have gone in a minute, but no one asked," says General Kinnard. Reinforcements arrived in the late afternoon and evening, and wounded were evacuated late in the evening, and the battle was over. The casualty toll for the 2nd, 7th was 155 killed, 125 wounded and at least 4 men missing in action. The battle lasted 16 hours. McDade would continue to lead the 2nd Battalion, 7th Cavalry until March 1966. Family. McDade met his wife, Eleanor Van Ingen, in Saigon, where she was working for the State Department. They married in 1974. The McDades owned and managed the Go Tally Gallery in Sag Harbor for 23 years. Decorations.